Civil War is one of Marvel's movies that solidified my love for the MCU, and it's a film that perfectly balances an iconic comic saga with the realism of the MCU. It doesn't feel absurd or goofy, it takes itself seriously. That's what makes it so intense and captivating. Also, Spidey is in it, so I'm biased.
There's no clear evil villain on either side of this. It's just a matter of who you agree with. That's what makes it such a good conflict, you know? It's not enemy versus hero. It's friends, it's family.
The Russo brothers had massive success in their previous Marvel film The Winter Soldier, but Civil War proved they have the ability to combine multiple character arcs and still create a satisfying story. From this, the Russo brothers would go on to direct two of the most anticipated crossover events in cinema, Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. They seem to just understand these characters and the universe incredibly well. They use their knowledge of Marvel's comic history to their advantage, and the tone they set these films in is exactly what the MCU should be. Writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely returned to yet another Captain America film, as they were the main writers of both the first Avenger and the Winter Soldier. Marvel basically hit gold combining these amazing writers and directors. These guys deserve the credit. They tie in a lot of plot points that were set up throughout Phase 1 and 2. This film also sets a standard for Phase 3. Phase 3 for me was a brilliant phase. It brought us a lot of important and memorable films. I'll dive more into that when I eventually review Phase 3 as a whole, but this film definitely defined that phase. Although the runtime is 2 hours and 28 minutes, it genuinely doesn't feel that long. It's paced perfectly and there are no moments that feel tacked on, and the parts that may stray away from the action are integral to the story. Chris Evans' journey from the first Avenger to Civil War was one that brought a lot of fans to the franchise, but so did RDJ's trilogy, and this is what made Civil War so impactful. Compared to your average Avengers movie, it created this divide between fans, but in a cool way. I remember having a really interesting conversation with a friend back at school when this came out, and we both had some interesting points on who should come out on top. So it saw people with existing relationships with these characters become heavily invested. Chris's portrayal is just as consistent as it has been throughout the franchise. He does well keeping this serious interpretation of the character, which goes well with the tone of the film. His reasoning as to why the Sokovia Accords were not ideal, fearing that the government would stop them from acting quickly to save people's lives, is something I got behind. So I was definitely Team Cap.
You chose to do that. If we sign this, we surrender our right to choose.
On the flip side, there's Tony Stark, who believes there should be a framework for the Avengers to follow, which is hilariously hypocritical of him, as he's the one who usually causes these massive calamities, such as Ultron. However, it's also due to this that he feels guilty not to sign it, you know? Downey continues his amazing portrayal as Tony here, as there's a lot of heartbreaking revelations. The scene where we find out what happened to his parents is crushing, and his reaction to it is unforgettable.
Did you know? I didn't know it was him.
This movie has a collective of brilliant actors and actresses. There are too many to go over individually, but a few stand out, mostly because of their screen time. For example, Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes played a major part in the story, and is the main reason why Tony and Cap are fighting in the first place. The revelation that the Winter Soldier assassinated Tony's parents was a crazy twist. It puts a nice bow on some storylines that were never properly explored. We get great utilization of Vision, as he was only introduced in Age of Ultron, so it was fascinating to see his powers in a new light, even if he almost killed Rhodey. Black Widow was another iconic piece in this movie, as her actions kind of set the way for the final act.
Said I'd help you find him, not catch him. There's a difference.
This film also introduces two of the most badass superheroes from the Marvel roster, Spider-Man and Black Panther. It's not overwhelming, they fit in nicely with the story, especially Black Panther, and they both have some incredibly memorable scenes. Spider-Man's introduction still gives me goosebumps to this day. His suit, although heavily CGI, fits within the MCU really well, and because Tony built it for him, a lot of the gimmicks and details make sense. Tom Holland's interpretation of Peter Parker is excellent, and I know there's a lot of opinions out there on who portrayed Spidey the best, but with Tom, he really hits the nail on the head.
Don't tell Aunt May.
Chadwick Boseman's introduction as T'Challa was a substantial addition to the MCU. It really is a shame he's no longer with us. I would have loved to have seen more stories involving him. Also, Black Panther's suit is one of the best in the MCU. You know I'm not wrong. Lastly, I want to talk about Baron Zemo. His villainous arc is refreshing to see. He's not a madman looking for power, unlike a lot of the villains we've had up until now. He's more complex than that, turning the Avengers against one another and just hating superpowered people in general. His family, who had tragically died in the Sokovia attack, is the main reason he does this, and his desperation to avenge them is just saddening. If you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you. It means a lot, genuinely. It seems as though I've gone through this movie without mentioning its flaws, which, like all movies, it definitely has some. Mostly for me, its flaws are found in its editing. And trust me, I can't edit for shit, so it's not something I should have an opinion on. But there are just some very quick cuts during the fighting scenes at the beginning of the film, and that may be good for those who have zero attention span due to TikTok, but for me, it gives me a headache. I love the realistic camera utilization in The Winter Soldier. It let me understand and appreciate the choreography a lot more, so they should have just stuck with that at the beginning of this movie. Also, the CGI is a bit lackluster in places, but it's nothing like Phase 4's effects. Considering that, it's still a strong addition to the universe and holds some of the most monumental events in the history of the MCU, and that's why I give this film such high praise. Its intensity and powerful utilization of its characters is what holds this movie above some of the rest. Seriously, each character in this film has an amazing use of their powers, and rewatching it now made me realize how awesome all these heroes are. If you're ever in a Marvel slump, just rewatch this movie, and trust me, you'll feel the love you once had for the universe come straight back.